So 9 years ago, I was 18 at the time, and I had just finished my pre-med degree, my undergrad, and then I'd gone to Africa for 6 weeks. And at that time, I'd now determined that I wasn't going to go in the medical field in the U.S., and I was left like, what am I going to do now? And for the past 7, 8 years of my life, all I had ever known was medicine. And I was the guy with all the muscle diagrams and the skeletons in my room and all the rest of it. And that was my life. And I dedicated every single minute to reading textbooks and doing flashcards and memorizing synapses and nerves and every single part of the body. And I got back and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no idea what I was going to do. I just felt super lost because that was my identity. And that's what everyone knew me for. I was the young kid that was going to become a doctor when he's really young. And so I remember very specifically, we lived on a place called North Golf Course Drive, Castle Rock Drive, my bad. And I was upstairs in my room, and I literally just remember sitting down at my computer and typing in landscape business course. And I was like, I had seen all the stuff on YouTube, and I knew that wouldn't make me successful, and I didn't really want what anyone was showing. And it's crazy that 9 years later, we're in this room. It's almost exactly 9 years, because I got back from Africa in December. And so it's crazy what 9 years can do. And so if there's any source of inspiration, or you look at what we've done and it's like, hey, that's pretty cool, just know 10 years, putting your head down and grinding, you can make something pretty cool. And you can help a lot of people. And ultimately, several years later, after realizing that my business wasn't built correctly and wasn't built on systems, as most of you know, I got caught underneath the dump truck in the PTO and was put out of commission for a bit, and realizing that my business did not work without me. And that was really tough. And that's when, if you look at Landscape Business Course, I kept the old videos in there. But the very first ones, if you look on my neck, you can still see the lacerations from getting caught underneath the PTO. And that was a crazy part in life, both those periods of time. Right after getting back from Africa, realizing I didn't really know what I was going to do. It was the first time in my life where I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do next. And then the next crazy period in time was realizing that what I had built and had left that medical career for wasn't worth a dime, because it couldn't run without me. And so I hope that over the past 4 or 5 years, something would be said that would encourage you, hopefully inspire you. I told the team, all the hardworking people in the back that deserve all the credit for this conference, that part of why we come here is sort of like why you go to an NFL event or you go to a concert. And that is, some people just want to disconnect and see how the game is really played. And it's not from a point of being cocky or being boastful or proud. That's definitely not my intention. But the reason why the quality of people that I wanted at this conference this year, it might seem unattainable. It might seem like these massive millions of dollars and all this stuff. And it might seem like it's out of reach. But whatever your capacity is for your life, that's what I want you to achieve. And that might be a $100,000 a year business where you can provide for your family and you're only used to making minimum wage. And maybe it is a $100 million business or a massive company or multiple locations. But if you're in that period of life like I was, or either A, you don't know what you're doing and you feel lost and you don't have any direction, or B, you're in a place where you realize what you have built isn't worth anything and you're really starting to question whether or not you even want to do this, I hope this weekend helps. It's why we put this on. And yeah. Statistically speaking, who here believes that we're in a recession or going into a recession? One of the two. Just raise your hand. Either in one or going into. Raise them really high. I'd probably say it's 80, 90% of the room. Based upon that, we would have to then assume that 1/3 of the people in this room will not be in business in 24 months. And so those are the type of things I think about when we come into a conference like this. That's why we don't have sponsors. That's why we don't have equipment. That's not going to get you through this recession. It's not. And so I hope that Tommy, Corey, myself, even just this evening, and the speakers that are coming up this weekend, I don't take it lightly that you guys fly across the country and spend days and all the time and energy. It costs about $2,000 to get a person here by the time you have airfare and tickets and rental cars and hotels and food, and I do not take that lightly at all. And so I hope that every dollar you spent comes back to you in spades and value. And I take it very seriously. The team knows I push extremely hard on them to make it worth your time and money. And I just want to say thank you for coming. Appreciate it. All right, let's rock and roll. All right, numbers. Now we're good. Perfect size business. That's what we're going to talk about. I know it was on Saturday. I think it was on Saturday in one of the event schedules. I switched it last minute. I felt like we needed to catch up on certain things. And so for some of you, this is going to be a review if you follow my content religiously. But I need to catch everyone up on a few things before we jump into the rest of the conference, all right? I'm going to go pretty fast. Because Tommy was so short, I literally went in the back and added more slides. So the last 6 or 7 of these slides were made about 15 minutes ago. So it's going to be great. All right, so we're going to talk about several different things. We're going to talk about debt, key performance indicators, and capacity-based growth. Again, if you know what those are, don't think this will be the same as everything else I've said. I'm adding a little bit to this. I want to bring this home for everyone. All right, so everyone knows I'm typically known as the guy who likes cash only. All right, let's run actually the numbers and look how this actually impacts your business, all right? Cash only, option number 1. Let's assume that you're doing $70,000 of cash invested, all right? This is typically what we spend about to start a new location. This could also be, though, what you would spend to start a new crew, start a new division, buy a truck and equipment to be able to get the business expanded, etc. But you're in this scenario going to spend $70,000. $70,000 what we're going to spend in cash. Because I invested $70,000, we're going to assume that led to $300,000 in new revenue. We're going to assume that we have a 20% profit margin in this business, net profit that I can take out of the business at the end of the day. 20% of 300, that's $60,000. If you take $70,000 invested, divide that by, sorry, I did it wrong. If you take $60,000, there you go. $60,000 and divide that by 70,000, your investment, you come up with a return on your investment of 88.7%. Now, let's look at the same example, but this time we're going to use some debt. So instead of doing $70,000 worth of cash, we're going to take option 2, where we take a $25,000 loan, cash, and then $45,000 loan of debt. Now, that same $70,000 investment is spent on the exact same thing, whether it be marketing, trucks, whatever you need to in order to be able to expand the business by $300,000, and therefore, regardless of whether you get cash or debt, the effect is still the same. We're going to buy the same stuff. $300,000 in annual revenue is added to this business. If we assume a 20% profit margin, still $60,000 in profit. However, now we need to pay interest because of inflation and all this stuff. Maybe we're going to pay 10% interest on this loan. That's $4,500. $4,500 is 10% of $45,000. Net, my profit on this debt is going to be $55,500. If I take $55,500 and I divide it by the actual cash invested, $25,000, so I take $55,500, divide it by $25,000, my return now is more than double. It's 222% return on investment. And this is the thing that seduces many people into debt, because you can grow faster, and you can do it in a manner that literally skips years of time if you're trying to grow quickly. And I'm not to say which of these two you should do. And I think a lot of times I get thrown into number 1, mostly because I see people misusing option number 2. Under the guise of creating tax benefits, or B, because they simply want equipment and fancy trucks to boost their ego, and ultimately it leads to something that's very bad. Because although this bottom part has a higher return on investment, if you go to 0 in option number 1, guess what you lose? $70,000. In option number 2, if you go to 0 and you fail, you've lost your $25,000, you have a $45,000 debt, and now you're paying $4,500 a year for absolutely nothing. All right? So there's risks involved, but you can absolutely use debt as a way to improve your return on investment. Most companies that grow and scale very large use debt. Just because someone is big and uses debt does not mean everyone should go into debt in order to grow quickly. Growth sucks cash. And if at the same time you're growing and expanding and presenting all sorts of new challenges to you, your business style, your management skills, and at the same time you're cash strapped because all the cash is going out the door, it can lead to financial suicide. And I think this is the case that's going to happen over the next 12 to 24 months. And if you actually believe we're in a recession, this will happen over the next year or two. The second option will happen, and those that have used debt in a manner to be able to buy the things that they cannot afford and live a lifestyle that their business and their personal life cannot maintain will go out of business. That's what happens in a recession. We're going to talk very deeply about tomorrow morning about the recession and go very deep on how the macroeconomics and the timing of all that works. I'm not too concerned about that today. What I want to move along because I'm literally just trying to set some groundwork for what I need everyone to be brought up to speed for the rest of the weekend. So I'm going to move along. KPIs, key performance indicators. All right, we're going to talk about something that Tommy touched on for a little bit, and that's attrition. All right, that is how many customers you are losing every single day, week, year, etc. Now, I know Ohio's pretty butthurt recently about their football team, but when it comes to football, you typically have three parts of a football team. You have defense, you have offense, and you have special teams. When it comes to your business, the defense in your business is attrition. Because ultimately, going out the door every single day, the thing that we don't track so often of the times is how many customers you are losing. Who here could tell me how many recurring mows you have? Raise your hand. This is not a trick question. How many people know approximately how many mowing customers you have? Fantastic. I would guess and imagine that less than 10% of the people that raise their hand actually know how many customers they lost last year. You said, oh no, I went from 100 to 200. Great, but actually you got 150 new customers and you lost 50. Your net might have been 100, but you lost 50 of your customers. That might be 20, 30, 40% of your business being lost every single year. And here's what's really scary about a recession. Attrition goes up at the exact same time that new customers filling that attrition stop coming in. Anyways, attrition is your defense. Close ratio, how many jobs you close, is your offense, okay? So attrition is the clients that you lose per unit of time, day, week, year, however you want to break it down, divided by your total clients. In this industry, it's very common to have 20 to 30% if you're in residential. It's a little bit less if you're in commercial, simply because your contract size is larger. Ultimately, though, your attrition is a number that we need to know in our businesses because that's how many customers you need just to keep the revenue the same as last year. How many clients you lost. Let's say, for example, you have 100 total mowing customers. If you lost 10 customers last month, you have a 10% monthly churn or attrition. Annualized, that means that over 100% of your customers are going to leave, 10% every single month. That means that every single year you will have to get 100 customers just to stay at the same revenue that you are today. And yet most of us know our offense, if you go back to number 4, and that is our close ratio, or how many jobs we're getting in the door. That's the thing that we usually obsess about because offense is sexy. Everyone knows who Tom Brady is. Everyone knows the wide receivers and the running backs because why? They're all on offense. What's not so sexy, what's not so cool is playing defense. And we've become obsessed in this industry with new customers, growth numbers, and you will not hear me say a revenue number this weekend. Like, oh, we want it. Who cares? If the things that I say need my numbers to back me up, please walk out. They either work or they don't. Me bragging about the numbers that I have means nothing. But when it comes to close ratio, that's a number that we typically know more about. We know how much our top line revenue is. We know how many jobs we got last week. We know what our revenue is anticipated for 2023. And the vast majority of us, if I asked you what your target projection for revenue is in 2023, you'd have a number in a matter of a couple seconds. But very few of us know our defense. And we all know the saying, defense wins championships. And let me tell you, your defense will be the thing that allows you to win during a recession. If we all believe that's where we're at, this is something we need to start to focus on. How many customers are leaving the back door every single day? Now, when we talk about our close ratio, all close ratio is essentially how many estimates did you close or got accepted in any given period of time. Let's just call it a month. Let's say you closed 30 and you had 50 estimates that were total given. 30 estimates accepted divided by the total number of estimates that were sent out is 50. That would be a 60% close ratio. Everyone following? Is everyone following? Yes. All right, let's go. We got to stay on track here. Now, what I want to talk about, though, when it comes to the key performance indicator of close ratio, which I believe we should all be tracking like every single week. You don't know the efficiency of your salesperson if you've grown to the size that you have a salesperson if you do not track their close ratio. You don't know if you're a good salesperson or not and be able to judge like Tommy did in terms of whether or not you should be the salesperson or the ops person if you don't know your close ratio. These key performance indicators are KPIs for a reason, and that's because you must know them. I do not care about the size of the tires on your truck or which brand of mower you have. It will not move the needle for your business. And in a recession, everyone that thinks it is and has consumed their time is going to be caught with their pants down. When it comes to your close ratio, there's two things that ultimately affect it. If we look at here at the bottom, how to improve or adjust your close ratio up or down, and you do want your close ratio to go down sometimes, and we'll talk about that. But ultimately, it's speed and price. These are the two main factors that go into affecting your close ratio. Now, how we can determine this and how you come to this conclusion is the fact that all humans at the top value time and money. Basically, most of us are here in part because we want to make more money. Another reason why we will pay for Uber, or we'll use Airbnb, or we'll do a myriad of other things in our day and pay for those services is because we either believe or do save or make time. Time and money is the thing that we sell to our customers. That's what you buy every single day from the products and services that you purchase. You're usually either chasing money or time. All humans. Therefore, if we know that time and money is something that everybody values and is basically everything that everyone is goals are oriented towards, we can assume that all our customers, because they value time, want things faster. And because they value money and they want things to be cheaper. And because in order to be faster, we need to improve speed. And because we want things cheaper, your price is going to be a dictating factor of what your close ratio is. These are the variables that go into the KPI of close ratio. I need you to know this number. The last session of this entire weekend is going to be simply about one thing only. I'm going to spend an entire hour talking about one KPI, and that is your close ratio. It is the determining factor of almost every single aspect of the business. When we talk about this, and most of you have seen me talk about this before, when we talk about the top here, we got clicks, referrals, leads. These are the new leads. These are the prospects coming in the top of your funnel. All good things start with a funnel. We got clicks from Google, from Facebook, from Nextdoor, whatever you're trying to drive. You might be doing every door direct mail and driving phone calls, but ultimately you have new leads and people coming in the top of your funnel. Now, on the right-hand side, based upon these clicks, we can calculate a CPC, our cost per click. This is usually very easy to determine because Google and Facebook love giving you this number. It's very easy for them to track how many people clicked on your ad and how much you spent. Very easy to determine cost per click. And you have people say, well, I spend $1 per click, I spend 15 cents per click, I spend this on Facebook or Google or whatever it might be. Ultimately, you're simply paying for someone to click on an ad. Regardless of whether it's on YouTube or any other online medium, you are trying to get them to click on something. You could also flip that around and use it for something like every door direct mail. You're just going to change the language slightly. But ultimately, cost per click. You could also call this like a cost per impression if you were doing every door direct mail and flip it around. But all that to say, if you're doing online marketing, you have a cost per click. And let me just say, by the way, everyone that thinks that they've got through their business without marketing is going to have a rude awakening in 2023 because their attrition is going to go up and they're going to have no way to bring in new customers. Conversion rate. So once we have clicks coming in the door, then we need to have a conversion rate. What percentage of those clicks are going to be converted into leads? This means how many people that come to your website are actually going to fill out your estimate request form. How many people are actually going to click on the phone number and give you a call? How many people are going to send you an email? Ultimately, how many people that click are going to actually become a lead and submit their information to you? This is typically mostly having to do with web design, search engine optimization, but again, SEO doesn't have a lot to do with the fact that they're already clicked, they're already on your site. So typically design is going to be the thing that affects your conversion ratio the fastest, or the most. How fast your website loads, where the placement of your estimate request form is, etc. Based upon our cost per click, let's just call it $1. And let's just say that our conversion rate is 1 out of 50, or 2%, which means that out of every 50 clicks that I get, I'm going to get 1 lead. If I have to pay $1 as a cost per click, CPC, and I have a 1 out of 50 or 2% conversion ratio, my cost per lead is going to be $50. Cost per lead, $50. Now, a lead is not money in the bank. And any marketing agency that brags to you about their lead acquisition cost, they are not at the bottom of the funnel, and it does not matter. All leads are not created equal. A lead from one avenue is not the same as from another. We'll talk more about that tomorrow, but cost per lead now is at $50. Accepted estimates divided by total estimates. That's your close ratio. Let's assume for now that that number is 50%. So 50% of the leads that ask for service, you're going to close, you're going to get them to accept and become a customer. So if we have a 50% or a $50 cost per lead and 50% of those leads become customers, what is our customer acquisition cost? $100. That means that if I put $100 into my business, I'm going to get $100 out. Here's another really interesting fact. If you lose a customer, you just lost $100. And he's like, well, customer service, I'm just trying to grow it, we're getting all these complaints. Customer service issues are costing you a lot more than your marketing spend. The reason we like marketing spend is it's something you can keep tapping into and spending more, whereas attrition takes some deep work on customer service and changing your systems. And for the people that can't have good customer service and also cannot market, that equation, when attrition goes up and they cannot get the leads in for the cost of acquisition that is acceptable, they will fail in 2023. All right, so at the bottom of this funnel, this is where most people stop, and that is new customers. That's number one. That's our offense. That's what everyone loves to talk about. That's what most people know. That's the things we understand. That's the thing that's sexy. That is the quarterback. That is the running back. That's the front of the magazine. That's what every single company in this industry is trying to sell you on, is offense. You'll make more money, you'll be more efficient, you'll save 50%, you'll be able to do twice as many jobs. If you buy this piece of equipment, if you buy this, they're always talking about this. You know why? Because it's hot as hell. It's sexy, and everyone likes to talk about it. I want to talk about the bottom part, because this is what we all need to know going into recession, when we start to lose customers. And that's when you get a new customer, that lead that became a customer drops out of that funnel and it goes into this bucket. And in that bucket, this is where you actually make money, by the way. A new client doesn't give you anything. They don't give you a single dollar. This is your customer base. These are the recurring customers. These are the projects that you consistently are able to upsell a project to, a property cleanup, a mulch install, a leaf cleanup. These are the people inside the bucket of your business. And the holes at the bottom is where there are customers leaving every single day. These are the ones that quietly quit on you. These are the ones that just say, hey, we're going to go ahead and just do it our own. And really, they're hiring the guy next door. These are the guys that get laid off from their job. They used to be making $100,000 a year. They get laid off from their job, and now they need to cut back out some expenses, and they're going to try to cut out that $200 per month mowing bill by doing it themselves. This is the guy that you miss your edging on 2 or 3 times in a row, and finally he's just fed up with it, and he cancels. This is the person that tries to contact you asking you for an upsell, asking for a property cleanup, and you don't get back to you for 5 days, and so he just does it himself. And so next spring, he just decides he won't use your service, he'll use somebody else. And these are the silent killer of almost every single service-based business, and why most service-based businesses will plateau if they're trying to grow, and they don't understand why, and they're constantly trying to feed money and marketing and more customers and more equipment and more trucks, and they've bought into the lie that getting more customers somehow makes you more money, when getting new customers makes you not a single penny. Keeping the customers that you have and keeping them for a long time over and over and over again, and delivering on the promises that you made to them when they came out of the bottom of this funnel, that's what makes a real business. So that's number 2. That's your defense. And a lot of people will even stop there. But there's a third part and a third component to every great football team, every great organization, and that is the fact, yes, you have your offense, your close ratio. Yes, you have your defense, and you need to guard attrition, and you make sure that people answer the phone and do the estimates fast and all the other things that we just mentioned. But the thing that many of us also forget about, again, we just neglect this because it's not sexy and no one wants to talk about it, but the people that nail this are the ones that grow great businesses. Not big businesses, great businesses. I recommend a book called Small Giants, and ask yourself if you really need to build a $100 million business to be called great as an entrepreneur. Number 3 is you have a special teams. You have your offense, you have your defense, and then you have your special teams unit. What does a special teams unit do? They come on the field when the team has made a mistake. They come on the field when they didn't convert on 4th down, or 3rd down, I should say. They come on the field when typically they're pinned up against their own end zone and they have to flip the field. And a good special teams unit can save and heal a lot of wounds created by a bad offense and even a bad defense. Because if that special teams can be backed up on their own 2 or 3 yard line, but kick a great punt, and now you're down at the 10-yard line of the opposing side of the field, that can really flip the momentum of the entire game. But we don't realize that special teams is important. You don't get to see the kickers and the punters in the NFL on the front of magazines. Nobody knows their name. And they're usually geeks, and they wear glasses, and they're a joke. They're the laughingstock. Are they even an athlete? And ultimately in your business, the re-engagement program is what that is. How do you take someone who left your business? They've been the person that fell out of the bottom of the bucket. They are part of your attrition. They are part of your churn. How do you convert them back into becoming a paying customer again? And some of you have never even thought about this. We talk about marketing, and we'll talk about it this weekend, and we'll get excited. We're going to do this marketing. Let's go. Drop the marketing keynote this entire weekend. I'm not talking about marketing. I know usually I give my top 5 and where things are at. It's not going to be the differentiating factor in 2023. It's going to be the people that figure out attrition, your defense, and the special teams of re-engaging the customers that drop out. What do you say when someone says they don't have the money to be able to continue service? What's your re-engagement program? Oh, well, it's 4th down. We'll just give you the ball, and there's the end zone. That's what a lot of small business owners are going to do in 2023. They're just going to give up. They're just going to throw in the towel. Because they're backed up and they feel like there's so much pressure, and it's like, why would I even try to re-engage? Why would I try to do an email campaign? Why would I call that customer when they just blasted my crew in the face because they haven't blown off the back porch 5 times in a row? It's a re-engagement program. On a monthly basis, you should be contacting every single person in your database. I don't care if they cursed at you, said a negative thing, put a negative review on to Yelp or Google or whatever it is. You've got to get them to flip the field back to being a paying customer. Because maybe you were the first service they tried and they thought you were horrible and ugly and all the rest of it, and they wrote a bad review, but then they go try 3 other services that don't show up. And like, you know what, it's not so bad. At least they showed up and they did a good job and they answered my phone calls. I can deal with the fact that 1 blade of grass was on my front porch and you wrote them off. Attrition, like we already talked about, clients lost. Time to close, this is another KPI, another key performance indicator that I think we should all know on the back of our hand. The same way that close ratio is important, time to close is extremely important. This is the average number of days that an estimate goes from sent status to either won or lost. I don't care if it's won. I don't care if the job is accepted. I just want an answer from the client. Your clients, if they ask for an estimate, they owe you an answer. It might be no. They might think you're the most ugly, you want to make all this money, you're ripping me off and all the rest of it, but you need an answer. And it is horrible. I scroll through dozens of CRMs every single day and see this consistently. First thing I do when someone's complaining about stagnating growth or about attrition is I go to this number. I go to the estimates page, I select how many estimates were sent, and I see how many of them over the past few weeks are still, their status is sent. They haven't been won or lost. It is staggering. I would imagine 50 to 60% of your estimates never get a response. They don't say no. They don't say you're too expensive. They don't give you a reason. They just don't accept. And you're somehow okay with that. The fact that you took 15 minutes of your office to take all the notes and put them through some screening process about what projects you can and cannot do. You check the service area. You make sure they're in your area. You scheduled the estimate for them at a certain time. You slotted out a window of time in the middle of your day when you could be making $80 or $100 an hour on a job, and you drove 30 minutes to go visit with them, and you spent an hour with Mr. Jones, and then you drove another 30 minutes back. That's 2 hours that you just spent on that. Now you spend another hour putting together the estimate, and then you send it over to your estimate, the person that sends it out, your office person. They spend 15 minutes putting together the numbers, putting in a really nice detailed, putting in pictures and videos, and you send it, and now all of a sudden, if you multiply the hours you've spent on this estimate, it's likely 4 to 5 budgeted hours. That if you multiply it by the opportunity cost of, let's just call it $80 per hour, you're literally paying $300 to $400 to get this estimate to a customer. And somehow, we're okay with them not telling us yes or no. But that requires a hard conversation. Because you're going to have to call Mr. Jones and say, Mr. Jones, I came and met with you a couple days back. I sent the estimate over. I left you a message yesterday. And now I'm just wondering, would you like to accept the proposal? And if it's no, that's fine. I'd just like to know why. But if it's yes, I can get you on next Thursday. We can get the project started. Well, you know what? It's just too expensive. All right, you need to have an answer for that. You need to be convinced so much of the fact that if Mr. Jones accepts anyone else besides your proposal, that you're letting Mr. Jones down. And if you care about Mr. Jones and you actually believe that you are the best option for Mr. Jones, it is your duty to ensure that every objection is cleared for the path towards an accepted proposal. And yet somehow, half of our estimates don't get any sort of answer. I don't care if you have to go to their house, print off the estimate, and demand an answer. I don't care if you have to harass them, but get an answer on these. When an estimate is sent, it is not done. You made no money. It likely costed you hundreds of dollars. There are ways to improve this, for example, with mowing, where you do quotes over the phone. There are ways to reduce this by making sure you do screening projects and you're ensuring you're not going to a project that you actually don't do those services and wasting that time. But ultimately, this is the number one deciding factor of whether or not your customer acquisition cost is going to be at a place where when recession happens and your attrition will go up this year, who is able to spend effectively to retain and get new customers into their funnel. That's who will win this game. Labor efficiency, another KPI, key performance indicator. Every single project needs to be tracked. If you do not have a CRM, I'm begging you, flip a coin and choose one. Anyone. Just please start tracking this stuff. I talked yesterday to a landscaper. I was pulling up at the bank, saw this landscaper guy. I hadn't talked to him for probably 5 years because I've just been out of the field locally. I saw him parked there. I rolled up on him. And because now I'm out of daily operations, most of them will talk to me because they don't feel as threatened. So it's great. So I roll up to him, said, hi, how you doing? And, he does hardscaping. And we sub stuff to him all the time, just subcontract the projects we don't do locally. And so obviously he likes us because we give him the work and stuff like that. But I asked him, how, do you use a CRM? Do you have any software and anything? He's like, no, man. I usually just tell my wife on text, and then she'll put together the invoices and do paper, and we'll send it out. You can't track this on paper efficiently. And if you're one person, you're like, oh, it's so much work. You will never get more than one person. Because you'll never be able to keep track of these KPIs effectively or efficiently or know them very quickly. But this is another KPI, key performance indicator. Budgeted hours, how many estimate hours do I believe the job is going to take? Typically for projects, this is extremely important. Mowing, you can get away with this sometimes, but for projects, you've got to know this. For recurring jobs, it's important that over the course of a period of time, you understand this number, because this is the number that's going to determine where you raise prices. Like, how should I raise prices? Who should I raise prices on? How much should I raise it? This number will tell you. If on average, 20% of your jobs have a higher clocked hours than the budgeted hours, because they're taking longer than expected over the course of a year, that's the 20% of customers you should raise your prices on. For projects, this is something you've got to know. How are you paying your people when they're taking forever, but because they work hard when you're in front of them, somehow you believe they're your best guys? It is a laughing stock when I roll up on crews, because now I don't have an Augusta vehicle, a little red Civic. I can roll up on crews and watch them all day long. And I'm able to watch crews that literally will work for about 10 minutes while the crew manager or the estimator comes and shows them the job in the morning, and I watch them go back into that truck and take a nap for an hour and a half. So why in the world will you not track this to determine that maybe something's off, that Mr. Jones' job that should take 30 budgeted hours, somehow, boss, it took 80, the back was aching, it was wet, the tires popped, the wind was blowing from the northeast. What other excuses do we got? This is the number that's going to tell you how efficient your labor is. And ultimately, the only thing we sell in this industry is time. Say, oh no, we sell mulch and lawns. And no. We either are saving people time or we're saving them money. That's what they're buying. So you're either going to be cheaper than everyone else or you're going to save them the most time. Oh, you know how you can save people time? Making sure you answer the phone, and you communicate effectively, and you have automations, and you can charge their credit card. These are all really basic stuff if you've been doing it for a long time, but I'm astonished how many people can't track that when this is the only thing we sell is time, labor. Your job, as in any home improvement business, any service business, is how do I take a unit of something, time, an hour, and I spend $20 to get that hour. Say, oh, we're going to flip things on eBay. Here's a flip for you. Take that $20 worth of labor and time and create a system by which over the course of time you've made it sure that you turn that $20 into 80 or 100 or whatever your hourly rate to the customer is. That's the best arbitrage most of the people in this room will ever have. But we've got to know what our budgeted hours are. Very quickly, if your budget hours and your clocked hours are not being managed, you can be running an extremely inefficient operation and scale massively because your marketing is on point, i.e. your offense is on point and your defense can't stop anything because you stink at customer service. You can't flip the field because once you get a customer that swears at you, you write them off, you swear back at them, and you pound them, and you go do this. Seriously? Where's the re-engagement program? Where's the thought that I'll get them in 3 months. They'll come back. I'll keep working on them on the email. I'll call them next month and see how they're doing. Where is it in this industry? Because that's who's going to win when customer acquisition cost goes up and attrition also goes up. The only people that will win is when the top of that funnel is now no longer making any sense to any of us in this room. And you can't buy customers for anything. You have to rely on a good defense and a great special teams field. Project completion percentage. If you're doing projects, this is, again, pretty basic stuff, but you've got to know how many hours have been clocked on the job, on the project, divided by what's the budget hours on the project. Like, how long should this job take? Okay, well, if there's 50 budget hours, it's already clocked at 60, we're over budget. Where are the red signals going? Hey, we're over here. Let's talk to the crew manager. What happened? What went wrong? Let's have a recon. Why did this go 20% over budget? Either you as the estimator, if you're doing sales, is incorrect and needs to be corrected and modified, or B, you have a problem with that crew. But if you don't track this, you're going to judge their efficiency based upon how they feel at the end of the day, the jokes they tell you, and what they do on the weekend with you. And that's who you'll incentivize too. All right, let's talk about capacity-based growth. Is this helping anybody? Yeah. That did not sound very convincing. Is this helping anybody? Yeah. Spend too much energy for not enough response. Come on, people. All right, capacity-based growth. So this is extremely important. If you can figure this out, and this makes sense to you by the end of this weekend, I guarantee you this will change your business. And not charging you for it or anything. So like there's no perverse incentive. Just do it. It's great. Okay, capacity-based growth is the key way to, as the title of the keynote says, determine exactly how big your business should be to maximize profit. Okay? Let's go ahead and do some math. Everyone ready? I know it's late. You guys are all on Eastern Standard Time. Yeah, a little yawn. Let's go. Stretch it out. Let's go. We're going to get into some math, all right? Capacity-based growth. Follow me, and if you lose, just try to hop back in, okay? Get the concept. All right, we have one person out in the field, one man. 35 budgeted hours per week. You're like, oh no, we work 40 or 50 or 65. Okay, fantastic. Let's assume that you're a regular human being that is going to get 35 budgeted hours done in a 40-hour week. That is extremely high, by the way. I would rather you budget for 30. So if these numbers seem a little bit high to you and you're going to do these yourself, I would recommend using 30 budget hours. That's a 75% efficiency rate. 30 divided by 40. Okay, remember back to labor efficiency? You got your budget hours divided by your clocked hours, 75%. That is assuming 25% of wasted drive time, load time, unload time, and whatever else they waste time on throughout the day. All right, so if we have 35 budget hours per week, which again is very, very good, and we multiply that by 4, we can assume about 140 budget hours worth of labor being completed on a monthly basis. Now, you can punch your numbers in here. 140, multiply that by 80. That's $11,200 worth of labor revenue per month per person. So if I have one person out in the field working full-time, again, very efficient, $35 budget hours, and I'm charging a good rate, $80 per hour. But if I do that, it means I should be able to, based upon the labor capacity, I should be able to do up to $11,000 worth of labor revenue. You're like, well, we do $40,000. You're probably in projects or chemicals, all right? Take it easy, buddy. But if you're doing mowing and you're doing 80 and we're not taking into account chemicals, or we're not taking into account product costs or estimate fees or dump fees, labor revenue, that's what we're tracking here, all right? Yeah, like what Liz said at the beginning, I didn't tell her to say that, but the whole ego thing, we got to kick the thing out the door, people. Like, come on, this weekend, like, if anyone's like, oh, I'm so like this, just seriously, please, you have my full permission to sock them in the mouth. It'd be great. That should not be on camera. All right, so $11,200 is what we can expect in terms of capacity for having one person, which means if I have two people, assuming an efficient system, obviously there's waste as you start to add more people. You're going to have more meetings. You're going to have less efficient use of labor. But just follow with me for an example. $22,000 is going to be my labor capacity. That means I should be able to do about $22,000 per month in labor revenue before I would need another employee, or I go beyond capacity, which typically means you're not working 40 hours a week now. You're working 45, you're working 50, you're working overtime, and we'll get into why that might not be a good idea in just a second. 3-man, 4-man, et cetera. We're just doing the math based upon 35 budget hours, an hourly rate of 80, et cetera. So that is labor capacity, all right? Freeze frame that in your mind. There's labor capacity. Now let's talk about asset-based capacity. Because if we're going to assume that the maximum number of people that you want to have in one truck is going to be 2, and you can change the math on this. I'm just doing this as an example. But if we assume that it's going to be 2 people in each truck, that's your max that you will put in a truck, which if you're doing residential mowing is typically a good idea. If you're doing commercial, you can usually get 3, 4 more if you're doing 16, 18 budget hours on one stop. But anyways, if we're going to assume a 2-man crew is the max that you would allow on a route, we can then assume that because we have one truck, that would assume 2 employees. Therefore, we know our capacity, based upon the assets that we have, the trucks that we have, that we can do $22,400 in labor revenue. If we have 2 trucks, it's just math, right? So 2 trucks, you can see the math. If you have 6, we should expect that if we have 3 trucks, 6 employees, that the absolute capacity, keep this all in mind, absolute capacity is going to be $67,200 in this case. Cool. Now, freeze frame that for a second, all right? So we got labor-based capacity based on how many employees we have, and then we have truck capacity or asset-based capacity based upon the trucks that we have. Freeze frame that because we're going to add a third one in a second, but I need to explain this, all right? I'm going to step over here. Sorry, guys. All right. So we got revenue over here. As we increase in revenue, whether you're doing $20,000 a month in revenue or $60,000 a month in revenue, there's going to be certain fixed expenses. put basically fixed expenses are things that do not change, the cost that you pay for rent, for insurance, whatever it might be, that do not change based upon your production or the amount of revenue. Let's just call it revenue because we're selling time, so that's ultimately production. As your revenue goes up, if that fixed expense stays the same, that's a fixed expense. If it stays the same, things like your insurance, your rent. It's not like your landlord's like, oh, you made less money in winter, we'll dock the rent. Not happening. That's a fixed expense. Does not change month to month based upon the revenue. Everyone clear on that? Very cool. So that means regardless of how much revenue I do on that bold line, this fixed expense is basically the same. Typically, fixed expenses over the course of a revenue on a chart like this will do step-ups because you'll have to like upgrade your insurance or upgrade your shop space. It's usually steps. But over the course of any smaller unit of time, your fixed expenses do not change. If next month you doubled in revenue, your insurance wouldn't change immediately. It'd change on your next renewal, and it'd step up. Does that make sense? Fantastic. We got fixed expenses. We're looking right here, though, at this is not time. This is not time on the bottom. This is revenue. So as I increase in revenue, my fixed expenses stay the same, and my variable expenses do go up in time. Why? Because the biggest variable expense that we have is labor. And if you do project-based work, you're going to have materials in there too. But it makes a lot of sense that it's a variable expense because it varies based upon how much revenue you do. So if you double in your revenue next month, it's very likely that your variable expense of labor and materials is also going to approximately double. Make sense? Fantastic. It's a variable expense. It varies based upon the revenue you produce, and you cannot just double your revenue without moving variable expense up. Typically, wages and product cost are the largest factors when it comes to your variable expense. This is also called COGS, cost of goods sold. Direct labor for us in the service industry, pop it in there, all right? So what this means is as I grow my business, I am eventually going to hit something called a break-even point, which means I cover my fixed expenses, but I also have to cover these variable expenses that I have in my business, because I have labor and I have other costs like fuel, a variable expense. The more I drive, typically correlates with how much revenue I make, so as I make more revenue, I expect to pay more in fuel. Is this okay? Is everyone following? Yes. All right, fantastic. So this is your break-even point. This is where you hit a certain dollar amount and you start to make profit. Anything below that on a monthly basis, you are losing money, all right? So anywhere on this chart where I'd be making this amount in revenue, you can put whatever numbers you want, you'd be losing money because you're below break even. You might cover your rent, you might cover the fixed expenses, you might cover your insurance, but if you can't cover your wages, you eventually go broke because you're losing money. As soon as that line crosses this one though, I start making profit. Here's what's really cool. So let's go ahead and use this example. I'm just going to use this example. You can throw your numbers in here. I'd recommend taking pictures of these slides. Revenue. Let's just assume that we're doing $42,000 per month in revenue, all right? We have a fixed expenses of $35,000 that we must cover in order to be able to just cover costs, all right? This is the revenue to cover our fixed expenses. Now, over here we have our capacity of 3 trucks, which is $67,000, okay? Our revenue here, $42,000. $35,000 is our cost to break even on our fixed expenses. Here we go. So our break even is, we're going to assume is $35,000. Just assume that, let's just peel some stuff away. If you made $35,000 a month in this business, you'd break even, right? No profit, but you'd break even. Everyone following? Yeah. Let's assume you make $42,000. That's the revenue for this month. The most profitable revenue in your business is this part from break even forward. The part between where you're currently at, the $42,000, that's your revenue, and what your capacity is lost opportunity. Because this is where all of the profits in your business are. And people are like, oh man, I just can't make any profit. I'm running a 3, 4, 5% margin business. And I ask them how many trucks they have, and I find out that their capacity is literally double or triple what their revenue is. This is where all of your profits are sitting. Every single person in this room, if they could just calculate their capacity, what their revenue is, what their break even is, and realize that anything on the right-hand side of that break even is way more profitable on the left. Because guess what? Your profit margin up to break even is 0%. Because guess what? If you make $35,000 revenue, your costs are $35,000, all in, break even, $35,000, I make nothing. Here's the cool thing. Let's go back a few slides. Check this chart out. As soon as I pass break even, I no longer am having more fixed expense. It's only variable expense. And for the vast majority of, if you can have your labor be like 30 or 40% of your gross revenue, that means that the revenue that you generate after break even is usually around 50 to 60% profit. Right, so let's look at this business. We have $42,000 in revenue. We have break even of $35,000. That's $7,000 above break even. If we have a 60% profit margin on that revenue, that means that we're going to have $4,200 profit. If you take $4,200, you divide it out by our total revenue of $42,000, we now come to a total profit margin of 10%. In this industry, that is considered a good business. 10% profit margin. Here's what's really cool. If you just knew your capacity and realized, okay, I have enough trucks to be able to do more revenue. I have enough employees to do more revenue. There's capacity for me to grow. And I'm not trying to push anyone to grow, and trust me, you're going to get that sense in a matter of minutes. But if you just grow $10,000 in top-line revenue, if you did that, you'd go from $42,000 in revenue to $52,000 in revenue, $10,000 more in revenue. However, because you've crossed break even and all that revenue is on the other side of break even and you're 60% profitable on it, you'd literally be $6,000 more in profit. So you go from $4,200 in profit to $10,200 in profit. You would double your profit, more than double your profit, by simply adding about 25% of revenue. 42%, 42,000 to 52,000, approximately 25%, but you double your profit. And your profit margin went from 10 to 19.6%, effectively doubling your profit margin. This is how close many of our businesses are to being extremely successful and profitable. It's a matter of realizing that you simply need to realize that any sort of revenue that you generate from now to capacity is where all of your profits are at. And the problem is you're so wrapped up in the fact that you're running a 5, 6, 7% margin business, and where is the money? But yet your trucks are sitting around, you have $80,000 a month in capacity, and you're still sitting at $40,000 in revenue, and because of all those fixed assets, because of all those fixed expenses, your break even is so high, you're not making any profit. And then you wonder why I tell people that buying more trucks and equipment is literally less than 1% of the time why they fail. It's because of this. They buy stupid stuff that overhire and have people that are so inefficient with labor, their capacity is so high for both assets and labor, and yet their revenues are literally half of their capacity. And all of their profit is literally sitting in their shop space in unused trucks, equipment, and labors. Capacity-based growth. Now, I thought this was pretty clever, pretty cool. And then one time I went and talked to one of our franchisees out in Michigan. And he talked to me about what he had gone through in 2022, and I realized that this was missing something, because this model that we were using was missing one very key component. Another capacity that you have to take into account. Personal capacity. What amount of revenue are you able to do without breaking? This is a number that requires some serious self-reflection and looking inwards and asking, really, what can I handle emotionally, psychologically, spiritually, with my relationships? What amount of revenue can I handle? Because if you cross the capacity of any of these capacity limits, both labor, cross that limit and you're gonna start overworking your crew, you will not have employees. And you're like, my churn is so bad. Yeah, they're working 50 and 60 hours a week. You're over capacity. So, well, I gotta buy new trucks. Why? Because I only got 2 and I work them every single day. Yeah, you know what you're doing? You're over capacity on the truck. So when it breaks down, yeah, you are in a really bad spot. So you know what you go do? Go buy a $50,000 truck. No! Realize that you're pushing capacity beyond the trucks you have, and you've created a dependence for the business because now you're over capacity limits. And the same thing is true when it comes to personal capacity. Because it's very easy to look at laborers and employees and see them as math, and look at trucks and see it as math, but we all miserably fail at this. Personal capacity. What is your actual limit? And I know the garbage that people are fed of, like, it's limitless, you can do everything. No, you can't. You're gonna burn out. Instead of I cannot afford that, I should say I am not willing to endure the pain that is required. I remember thinking this at late at night. Wrote it down on my little remarkable, that's what all these little marks are, just my pad. Instead of I can't afford that, because I hate when people say that, just take that whole little phrase out there. I should say, I am not willing to endure the pain required. You know why you aren't in shape? Because you're not willing to endure the pain required of waking up early in the morning and going to the gym. You're not willing to endure the pain that is required to eat a healthier lifestyle and do things that are hard. You're not willing. Just admit it. Come to grips with the fact that you do not have the personal capacity to lose weight. Put yourself in the gym. Grind yourself. Work hard. Do 50 hours. And guess what? That's okay. It is an extreme release when you realize that that's okay. If you can't work 50 hours a week, that's okay. If you can't run a $200 million business like Tommy Mello, that's okay. That's not your personal capacity. And if you try to push yourself to that limit and you say, oh, Tommy did it, I can do it too. My truck kind of looked like his truck. I should do garage doors. I could do $200 million. You'd literally burn yourself alive. You'd burn every relationship you have. You'd burn all your finances. You'd just completely waste your life. Any capacity gone beyond the limits of what it should be at will eventually catch up with you. It is a short-term process and a short-term gain when you exceed capacity in both labor, assets, and your personal capacity. Yes, you can push your crew in the short term and get them to do more and get the job done. But if you do that over and over and over and over and over again, you're going to break them. If you take your trucks and you go beyond the capacity that we just talked about and the math of how much revenue you should be doing per truck and you start grinding those trucks, yes, one of them is going to break and you're going to lose a contract because you didn't show up on time. It's going to break. And if you push yourself personally to go and match the hours or the work that I or any other person next to you or at this conference or in this industry tries to do, and you try to match that, you're going to break. And ultimately, when it comes to your personal capacity, you have to ask yourself the question, what am I willing to afford? What am I willing to pay in the form of pain to get what I want? The $200 million business that Tommy talked about, the business that Corey talked about, these great things we look up to. It takes a lot of pain. And the reason I have really made it very clear to myself in the past several months is I will not talk about my numbers and all the rest of it, is I do not want anyone putting a benchmark on what they should be doing because of my actions, because my personal capacity is different than yours. And your personal capacity is different than the person sitting next to you. And the person you're going to have lunch with tomorrow and the person you admire on social media. It's different. And if you just try to match them, you're going to wreck. This is something we fight in Augusta because we all know each other so well and we start to compare and, oh man, they're doing so good and they're growing. Their capacities are different than yours. They don't have to go to church. They don't have a family. They're not married. They can put 60, 70 hours in. You can't. And if you try, you're going to break. When it comes to the pain that you say, look, I have the trucks, I have the labor, so I have the asset capacity, I have the labor capacity, I'm currently doing less than that, and I feel that my personal capacity is significantly higher than where I'm at currently in terms of the size of my business. You're only cheating yourself if you leave capacity on the table. The same way that lost opportunity is the result of the difference between your revenue and your capacity for labor, assets, and personal capacity. The bottom line is that difference between what you are capable of, your personal capacity, and where you're at now is an absolute waste of talent. And you're cheating yourself, your family, and your community from what you could be providing for them. And shame on us if we don't push ourselves in this area. You say, well, that's really kind of speaking out both sides of your mouth. You say on one side, don't push yourself on personal capacity. You also say on the other side to push yourself and really reach. The bottom line is, are you self-aware enough to realize what is your capacity? I really implore you all to know what your capacity is. And just be objective about it, without pride, without comparison. Just be like, what kind of business do I need to have to where the capacity that I have personally is maximized, but I don't exceed it to the point where it breaks me? What are you willing to pay? What are you willing to afford for your church, your family, experiences that you can have? You can fix pain, a lot of pain with money and building a great business. You can fix a lot of pain. For other people, for family members, you can provide jobs, you can provide a safe place for people that are hurting. You can do all of that. You can solve problems with money. Money solves problems. Might not make you happier, but it'll solve problems for you and for other people and people that you love. And so if your personal capacity is so much greater than what you come to this conference with, my only hope, dream, and goal of having people with hundreds of millions of dollars worth of revenue is hopefully inspire you to realize your personal capacity is so much greater than you think. But if you don't know what that number is, there's a very good chance you're going to cross that and you're potentially going to break. Like I said, excess capacity when it comes to labor-based capacity, that's how many employees you have, asset-based capacity, that's a lost profit opportunity. That's how much profit you could have. That is the delta. That is the difference. That difference between what you're making now in revenue and your personal and your labor-based and asset-based capacity. That's lost profit. But your personal capacity, if left untapped, is buried talent. Now, this is the part I wrote in the back. So let's give this a whirl. Here's my plea, and the thing that I actually am super excited about. Half of the people in this room should stop growing their businesses. Like, Mike, you've never said that. That's so bad. This is the bottom line. Half of the people here should stop growing the business. And instead, they should focus on taking what they have and making it more efficient and profitable. They should focus on trying to maximize the capacity they already have instead of completely buying more trucks and equipment and all this other garbage. I'll get to that in a second. But I truly believe this, especially as we head into recession. If you're spending money at a clip that is so high and you don't have the systems in place for marketing, it's okay to stop growing. If your customer acquisition cost doubles or triples, like it does in every recession, at the same time your attrition is going through the roof because people are trying to save money, you do not need to grow because the math won't work. If you're pouring so much into marketing and you're not seeing results, it's okay to say, hey, you know what, we're not going to grow. Rather, we're going to deploy all this time that we would usually spend on hiring and training more employees. We're actually going to focus on something else called defense. And we're going to start tightening down the automations, the office work, how we do follow-up processes, and that's what we're going to focus on. The defense that costs you absolutely nothing besides time, energy, and a little bit of self-reflection to realize that your business has problems too, like mine does. And you're going to make mistakes, like I do. The reason that March 2020 was so scary for this industry, and everyone forgets so quickly what March was like. When we didn't know what was happening, we were all closing down, most of our states were telling us we could not work. Here's the real reason why everyone was afraid. It was the first time since 2008 that we ever saw people leaving our business and no one was buying. And no one was accepting estimates, and everyone was delaying their jobs. And everyone was like, we just gotta see what happens. All of a sudden, oil tanks, people's retirements tank. All of a sudden, everything's in massive calamity mode. Why? Because demand destruction. All of a sudden, people did not need your service. Because the $20 that you used to save is no longer worth the extra hour that they save because they don't have a job. And all of a sudden, you have a spike in unemployment. And guess what unemployed people do? They go get a mower from Lowe's and they start mowing people's lawns for a lot cheaper than you can ever afford. And the reason we did not learn our lesson in 2020, we did not in this industry, because I got so many phone calls from massive companies that were scared out of their brains because all of a sudden their projected revenue for the next 3 months went from 4 million to 2 million, and that wasn't above their fixed expenses. And they knew they would be only a matter of months before they'd be out of business. Now, we got saved like no other business by Jerome Powell coming in and saying, we're going to give money, we're going to cut interest rates down to zero, and we're going to let this thing ride. And sure enough, we got out of it in a matter of months. But when that comes again, and we can't do what we did from a recession standpoint and cutting interest rates, that will not happen again. They will let the recession happen. And we'll talk about this tomorrow. Jerome Powell is very clear. There will be a period of pain for all this inflation stuff to get out of the system. That means high interest rates, and when high interest rates go up, no one spends money. Because we've all been living off the good life over the fact that since 2008, we've had real estate prices go up, stocks have gone up, every asset has gone up, our economy has been doing fantastic, and interest rates are so low, people are willing to spend money on the new deck, the new landscaping project, the new sod, just tear it out and put new sod in. That stops during a recession. And people, all of a sudden, I close every single job. It's incredible. When I ask people what their close ratio, I close every single job. Every single job, really. Fantastic. So tell me about the last 3. And all of a sudden, they actually boil the numbers down. It's a 40, 50% close ratio. When that goes to 10 and 15%, that person is going to go out of business. And why I plead people to have recurring revenue, at least some of it, is to protect yourself, because at least you have a bucket. At least you have something to try to hold on to cover your fixed expenses. Because a project doesn't have a bucket. It's a one-time job. You've got to have something to play defense with. And that's why recurring companies are typically the largest in this industry. You don't see a lot of 9-figure project-based only companies, because they can't scale to the point and withstand a massive recession where all of a sudden projects get wiped out. What the news will say causes a business failure. I looked this up. I kind of went throughout what the news, or what the internet, my goodness, says about a business failure. I kind of looked throughout. These are the 4: financing hurdles, can't get enough money, etc. Inadequate management, ineffective business planning, marketing mishaps. This is a bunch of garbage. This is not why businesses fail. This is why big businesses fail. This is why people in the stock market fail. This is not why small businesses, especially service-based businesses like our own that have a low barrier to entry, this is not why they fail. Context matters when you read or listen to anything, all right? When you hear someone that has millions of revenue talk about something, you should ask yourself, the advice they give me, is that pertinent to my business that has $100,000 in annual revenue? News alert, it doesn't. So when people are gonna say, hey, we gotta buy brand new trucks, we're gonna massive equipment, we're gonna spend all this money for tax write-offs, you don't have any profits to save from taxes. Why are you buying stuff? When Tommy bought all those new trucks, he was doing $5 million in revenue and had profits to protect with taxes. If you're running a business that's at 2 and 3% margin, you don't need to buy new equipment for taxes. It's an absolute excuse to feed your ego. The context and the size that someone's speaking to needs to matter in this industry. It's ridiculous. So the size of these businesses, yes, this is why Fortune 500 companies fail, because they can't finance things. Interest rates go way up like they are now, and that's why we're seeing a lot of bankruptcies. Talk about that tomorrow. Yes, people do bad management practice, etc. That's not why small businesses fail. This is a bunch of excuses that I hear from people when they go out of business. Is, oh man, we just couldn't get finance for the loan. The SBA called our loan, and the management, my manager, he just left me yesterday, and it's just can't find any good people, and all these other things. Oh, in effect, we just didn't have a plan, Mike. We came to conference, we heard everything, but we just didn't create a plan. It's our fault. We're bad. We didn't do a good plan. Oh, marketing just didn't work out this year. That's going to be a massive excuse in 2023. Just wait. Oh man, marketing, no one was accepting our quotes. All the rest of it. The marketing, that's what people are saying why businesses fail. And what we tell ourselves why we fail, and the excuses that I hear is, well, the economy's not that great. I can't find employees. I can't trust anybody. No one wants to do the hard work. I got to cut service. I got to do this. All the excuses we tell ourselves why the companies fail. And unfortunately, I get to see hundreds of businesses fail every single year. I get a very good pattern of what's working and what's not. And the ones that aren't are not on that list. They are not having issues with financing and inadequate management. These are the lies that we use to try to warrant why we died, why the business died. That's what we say. The economy's so bad, the labor market's so bad, no one can find employees, I couldn't find anyone, everyone walked off the job, customers are bad, this is my market. All the excuses we say as to why our businesses failed. The only reason I think I put that there is because this is live, I think, tomorrow. Lawn care business for sale. It's completely free. And I'm literally doing this because I know a lot of small businesses, especially in this industry, are going to get wiped out in 2023. And I sure hope that I'm going to make videos about how to sell, how to buy, and how to optimize your valuation. I hope it helps them somewhat. You're not going to pay. This is not paid service. It's completely free. All right, it's going to be live tomorrow, and I sure hope this is the last something I can throw at someone and say, please, at least sell the business and pay for food for the kids. Do something. That's the last line. I don't want you ever to use this. Here's why they really fail. What actually makes landscapers fail is these 3 things. Consistently, the locations, whether it be Augusta or landscaping or service-based businesses or any small business, these are the 3 things that I see why they actually fail. It's not financing, it's not the economy, it's not the labor market, it's not. Those are excuses, and those are rationalizing why you fail. This is why they usually fail. 90% of the time, I would say one of these three things contribute, are the main factor as to why a location will close or a business will fail. Number one is your relationships. You say, oh man, Mike, we're going back to the soft stuff. There's a balance here. You gotta push yourself, and then you also have to realize that there's certain limitations that you have as a human being. And those are different from every single individual. Number one, relationships. The amount of businesses that close because a spouse is not on board during the process of the business growing is staggering. In my opinion, that's the number one reason why businesses fail. Because an issue happens with a relationship. Family, kids, parents, spouse, whatever it is. Say, what's that got to do with business? This is landscape business. This is landscape summit. What's that got to do with? This is everything. This is why businesses go out of business. This is why people fail. This is why people quit. This is defense. You say, well, you mean having date night with my spouse is going to help me run my business better? Yeah, it is. It might save the business during a recession when you're really scraping by and you need to put 55 hours in a week just to scrape by and pay off your fixed expenses. Physical health. Why in the world are we so sloppy? This industry needs to pick it up. Why is the gym not full? Why aren't we eating healthier? We are literally working outside. We're hard physical labor. There's no reason to be sloppy. Say, well, it's genetics. Okay, are we gonna throw excuses? Try, just go for it. What pain are you willing to endure to see the results in your business, in your life, in your family? Physical health is massive. Do you think I really enjoy working out? No. I'm tired as all get out. My feet are killing me right now, and I'll go home and do jumping jacks or something stupid just to get my heart rate up. Do I enjoy that? No. Do you enjoy waking up early? Do you enjoy eating good, healthy food? I'm gonna go downstairs, hopefully meet with some great people and eat some salad. Do I enjoy salad? No. But it's the pain I'm willing to endure to see the success I wanna see in my life. And I believe that the personal capacity I have is so much greater than where I'm currently at. I must put the work in. Because if I don't, I'm only letting myself down, my community down, my family down. And there must be a duty that you receive and recognize that your personal capacity must be increased. And you have something to do with it. You say, well, my personal capacity, I can only grow a business with 1 or 2 employees. Oh, or is it? Is it because you're binging on Netflix, drinking alcohol, and getting stoned every single weekend that you can't grow a bigger business? And that's bringing your personal capacity down. And then the third and final reason that I see consistently people failing in this business is they cross one of those three capacities. Whether it be asset-based capacity, labor-based capacity with their employees, they're pushing that too hard, or they push past their personal capacity. And we wonder why there is depression, we wonder why there is suicide, we wonder why there is anxiety, and trust me, every single person that will get on the stage has gone through it. You are not different, you're not strange, and you are not weird. And we need to talk about this stuff. Because this is why people will fail in 2023. It's not gonna be all the other garbage and the reasons that we're gonna talk about the rest of this weekend. The market, the economy, labor, how this is gonna work their marketing. That's not what makes businesses fail. And in 2023, defense is the game we must play. It's not gonna be offense. You will very rarely hear me talk about growing your business this weekend because I don't believe that's what's required to get through 2023. And if we're gonna prevent a third of us in this room from going out of business over the next 2 years, it's gonna be the people that play the best defense, and that's defense. You've gotta get your spouse on track. You've gotta get them on the same page, and that might mean you reduce your personal capacity because you value the relationship. But if that breaks up, you're dead, and the business is dead too. Most bankruptcies caused by what? Breakups, relationships that didn't go the right way. You gotta get on the same page. There's a reason why we have the support track downstairs tomorrow and Saturday. Because I needed spouses to come and get on the same page. You gotta have some hard conversations about what you want. What is your personal capacity? You might want $1 billion business, but if your spouse doesn't, you're gonna get dragged through all sorts of garbage and going through a divorce and all the hurt feelings and the distractions, and you will waste 5 or 10 years of your life on something that's preventable by just recognizing what your capacity is and then communicating with the spouse. By the way, 50% partner on life. Gotta figure this stuff out. You know why I'm so passionate about this? You're like, you don't even have a wife. You're right. But I see time and time and time again, the reason why owners have a 1, 2, 3 year step back in their company, or they go out of business, is because of that top one right there. They can't figure things out with the people that are most important in their life, and that includes their family, their spouse, and the people that they love. You've got to get on the same page. You should talk about what are your goals. Like, I consistently see the companies that win are the ones that bring their spouse to these events. Consistent. Because they're at least on the same page. They at least know where the ship is going. You've got to talk this through. Say, this is totally off topic. This is why businesses fail. I see it all the time. It has nothing to do with marketing. It has nothing to do with the labor market. It has nothing to do with any of those things. It's relationships, physical health, and growing beyond your capacity. This is what I want us to focus on this conference. I know it's tempting at a landscapers conference to talk about everything but these 3 things. But this is what's actually going to move the needle and going to help you in your business. Focusing on this stuff. It might be a good time to get a little bit vulnerable with the people you talk about and talk about the struggles you're having in relationships about the business. Get a little bit personal about the physical health problems that you're having, the medications that you're on, what you're struggling with psychologically and mentally. That's what's limiting growth for you. It's not the economy. It's not any of that. You having an extra 50, 60 pounds on you every day, I promise you, you are limiting your personal capacity. The amount of energy you can have when you are at an appropriate weight and healthy, eating correctly, sleeping correctly, not drinking to oblivion, when you're doing those things, your personal capacity is so much greater. And anything that's artificial that brings that down, you're simply wasting the talent you've been given by God. And shame on us. So this weekend, I hope it's helpful. I hope we talk about business, we talk about big numbers and all the rest of it. You know, I love numbers and all that. But this is ultimately what I really hope we talk about at breakfast, lunches, when you're down in the lobby, when you're going out for restaurant tonight, which I recommend everyone do. I'd ask you to talk about these 3 things. And get open and vulnerable. You can trust the people in this room. I don't want anyone to have ego, and it's okay to say, I'm not doing great. Maybe not financially, you might be crushing it. There might be people in here with $3, $4 million businesses that want to commit suicide. Or potentially they're struggling with their family and their relationship, and they're here because they're just trying to escape. This is what will close your business down. Please talk about this more and less about trucks and equipment. Thanks, guys. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 8 o'clock, up here.